Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we're taking a look at the McFarlane. Wait a second. Not McFarlane. It's not McFarlane. But it's a female figure covered in random steampunk crap and giant guns. But okay. The Universal Select Lucy Westenra figure. And if the Wolfman and Mummy from this wave are emulating the Son of Frankenstein monster, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon from last wave, Lucy here is emulating the Dr. Van Helsing figure we got. Taking a Dracula supporting character and decking it out in crazy vampire hunter steampunk gear. I thought it was kind of an interesting concept last time, but we'll see this time if the concept's just gone too far or if it's still relevant. Once again, like the Wolfman, this is the comic shop version. It comes with a big display base. We have a stone floor here with some good detail. Some more of the kind of dirt or sand or whatever this is. Some rocks are on the outside with some moss and grass going through. Kind of a step down here. But in the images for the promotion of this figure, we saw there was a big arch that went over the top. That's missing, and I don't know if I just didn't get one for some stupid reason, or more likely it just ended up not coming with the figure, probably due to cost reasons or something. So that's a little disappointing we don't get that arch, but I probably wouldn't have displayed it anyway. This base is probably just going in my box of huge display bases I don't actually use because, well, it's gigantic. For accessories, Lucy's first accessory, I can't find a safe way to detach from her, so we're going to review it on the figure here. It is this weird looking Ghostbuster gun or something. The body of it has a copper look, accented with even some green, kind of oxidizing pieces here. Then we have some translucent green tubes and vials and weird things coming off of it. There's a metal hook here that actually latches on to a bandolier around her shoulder, which we'll get into a little later. And the handle feeds into a big green translucent tube, which we'll just continue on to the backpack here, where we have more green translucent stuff. Feels like it should unpeg from here, but I haven't found a way that feels safe to do so. And then we kind of have this weird looking coffee grinder looking backpack that Lucy's wearing, which is very interesting. Not really sure what this gun's supposed to be, but she does hold it all right here in her hand. You can just slide it right in there. Unfortunately, it really pulls on this bandolier, and it makes it just a little awkward to have it positioned where it doesn't just look like it's pulling up a piece of plastic, and instead has it rest in a way where it looks like it's actual material. Lucy also comes with a double barrel old-timey gun that I don't know exactly what type this is, but we do have the two little hammers back here looking good. Some great paint on here. The wood looks really old and worn. Metal looks old and worn. It's really nice overall. I think there's some great detail in this. It really makes it look like an authentic old gun. Lucy does have a holster for this that hangs off of her belt, and you just take the piece and you slide it right in there. It fits nicely, though I have noticed it's a little hard to get out sometimes. It's almost like it sticks to the rubbery plastic that the holster is made out of, so just be kind of careful with it. Last but not least, Lucy comes with two big-ass knives. They're identical, so we'll just look at one at a time. And I love the look of this. A nice silver blade with a really ragged shape to it, and a really cool ornate red hilt at the end. Very cool blade. These can actually be stored on her back. She has two sheaths back there where you can just slide the knives in there. They don't fit super tight, so if you're going to mess with the figure, they might fall out. So I'm going to leave them off for the rest of the review, but for just general display purposes, I think they work really nicely and give her a very intimidating look with them sticking out behind her head. Speaking of her head, they did a really good job on the head sculpt here. She looks very Victorian era. They gave her some good makeup around her eyes and some good lipstick and everything. She's kind of dirty blonde hair, bits of it coming down in front of her face that are rubberized plastic. Then it all kind of piles up here on top of her head. There's little bronzes looking jeweled piece holding it in place, and that comes down the back in these two strands that are also rubberized, so they don't impede her articulation or anything, which is really cool. And overall, I think it's a really nicely done head sculpt, but we do get a separate head sculpt for it. And this is the vamped out look for her. She has the mouth open with the fangs exposed, this evil look on her face. And as we all know, turning into a vampire makes your hair darker. don't get this. I kind of wish they would have kept a consistent color between the two heads, so you can almost make it look like she's turned into a vampire, but for some reason she has brown hair in this version. Also a very different hair sculpt to it. This is a little more pulled back, Lara Croft Tomb Raider style with the braid coming down the front. She still does have the little sideburn pieces hanging out, which looks good. They're still rubberized, but overall I like the hair sculpt on the first version much better than this, but this works decently. We also have some goggles on her head, which are really cool, steampunky looking. They have goldish pieces here, or brass pieces. There's red eye here as well. And I didn't realize it when I first opened the figure, but they actually are on an elastic. So you actually can remove them. You can remove them completely, but we'll just pull them up here for a minute to show off her bright red evil looking eyes, and I think those look spectacular. I kind of like the goggles, as much of a stupid steampunk stereotype they are, but I like this angry demonic face a heck of a lot more. This head also comes packaged with a hood, so you can actually take this very Egyptian looking headdress and put it over top. I'm guessing this is all supposed to be so she could travel around during the daylight while still being a vampire. But we do have this kind of gold and green trim going around the front of it. It's a soft rubberized cloak, so really easy to put on and off the character. Some good detail down here at the bottom where it kind of flares out. Then we have the little kind of excess space here at the top that's flipped down, and some good texture throughout, some nice different shades of brown to bring out the different details here. I did try taking her bandolier and putting it over top of this, but really all that succeeds in doing is pulling in the one side very close to her head and pushing the other side out, and it makes it look a little more awkward than I'd like, so I do leave the bandolier underneath. Looking further down the figure, she does have a very high collar here with a cross there at the front, making you wonder how Dracula ever got to her in the first place. I guess she wasn't wearing that when she was bit. And then we have some bare skin going on there, and yeah, that seems practical for fighting vampires, but you know what, I'm really not complaining. The whole top section of her costume looks like it's supposed to be leather, so there is some kind of nice leather detail similar to the hood, some kind of brass rivets through it. The bandolier has some buckles and things on it. It also has some bullets, maybe silver bullets going across the front. Back, we really can't see because of all those holsters and backpack pieces we already talked about, but they are very ornately done, very cool looking. Around her waist, she does have a corset or something similar going on here. I'm sure somebody will tell me there's a different terminology for it, but we do have some more of those green gems, the brass pieces, silver pieces, and overall it just creates a very cool look. It even kind of continues on the back. You can see how it's tightened back there. Very cool attention to detail there. Her sleeves are both very different. They kind of have this gray top and a green underside to them. On one side she has armor that almost reminds me of Kratos in God of War 2, where he has the golden fleece or something going on. On the other side she has a pouch, and she still does have a piece of armor there on her elbow. The wrists are really weird to me because they let this one piece free float, I guess to keep it facing the right direction at all times, but this piece of the glove just seems kind of odd. But there's some nice detail here as well. It's black with a gray dry brushing over top of it. Then we have this yellow trim with the brass rivets. Then her gloved hand looks pretty good. This hand is meant for gripping. The other hand has a trigger finger. Going on her belt, more great detail. We have some wooden stakes for killing vampires, or ornate belt buckle, and then some more pouches as we go around the back, as well as the holster we already talked about. A little bit of a skirt going on here at the bottom of it all. And we have her leather pants with even more ornate pockets and weird cargo short things with brass detail on them. And then some majorly high boots with all kinds of cool silver straps on them and some big ass high heels. For articulation, unlike a lot of companies, Lucy kind of maintains the same level of articulation as the men, despite being a skinnier female body. She has a ball joint at the base of the head, so she'll look pretty darn far up, decently down, hindered by that collar she's wearing. She can turn her head side to side as well as tilt. Arms are on pin socket joints, so they will go forward, back, as well as out to the side. Swivel at the bicep. We can also bend at the elbow almost 90 degrees as well as rotate. The wrist can swivel as well as hinge in and out. We get a mid-torso ball joint, which is a little limited because of the corset, but you can turn side to side, a little bit forward and back, and a little bit of tilt. I believe we actually do have a waist joint here under this whole section, but I really can't get to it to move it around to be sure. But I think we have enough just with that upper torso articulation, so I'm not super worried about it either. The legs are on those DC-UC style joints. They'll go pretty far forward. Rubberized front here really helps that. They go back an okay amount, but hindered by her own ass. They will also move out to the side. So there's a cut joint right where the top of her boot starts. A very nice knee hinge. And at the foot, she can hinge very far forward and back, as well as rotate. The only thing she really doesn't have is a good ankle pivot. And despite where this rivet sits, she doesn't have a toe joint. It just really looks like she does. And for a comparison, here's Lucy next to last year's Dr. Van Helsing in a similar style. I think these two work really well together. They're definitely going next to each other on my shelf. They stand almost the same height, but you also have to take into consideration that Lucy has a much higher hairstyle and some pretty crazy high heels going on. And looking at these two side by side, I'm reminded that the Van Helsing, at least in my eye, kind of looks like Shawn Ashmore in old age makeup. And I was trying to think if she looked like anybody famous, and all I could think of is she really just kind of looks like every girl in a Hammer horror movie, which kind of fits perfectly for this, even if it's supposed to be universal. And overall, I actually really like this figure. I think it's kind of dumb. I think the whole steampunk concept is something I would find lame in most cases. No offense to any of my viewers who are into steampunk, it's just not my aesthetic. But I think it's really nicely done here. I think the figure's well executed. I love that she's not really missing any articulation on account of being a female character. She's definitely not lacking for accessories. I think some of the things are executed a little wonky, a little haphazardly, and I think with a little extra engineering work they could have been done a bit better, but overall I'm pleased with this figure. I'm going to give her a recommend. I think the moment I realized she was getting a recommend is when I kind of made the statement that she was a decent figure, but kept thinking, want to know what the story is with the character. I want to see this interpretation of Lucy and how it would fit into a larger universe. And in some way, that's what action figures are all about. For being a concept without having to pay any likeness rights or anything like that, I think Diamond Select made something really intriguing and really unique. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews. Stay tuned for more to come.